In this video, I'm going to share with you a really easy way to debone, take the meat off a deer in this case, but it works for all big game animals. In the previous two videos, I shared some easy and clean techniques to eviscerate or gut a deer and then skin a deer. Make sure you check out those two videos. When taking the meat off a deer or deboning a deer, it's easiest when it's hung. You notice how clean this deer is, no leaves or grass or stuff on there. And I start with the rump end first. I start with a sharp knife. I've used this same knife to eviscerate and skin. It's still really sharp and it'll work well. When I'm cutting in here, I'm following muscle lines, and you can't see some for the fat, but right about here, you can feel the edge of a big bone right here. Well, you don't want to put your knife on that big bone, so I go down below it. You can feel the meat right here just a little bit. Go in till I barely feel the bone. I'm not hitting the bone, I'm just flaying down it all the way down. And you'll tell when you get to the end of this big muscle group right here, and it will just start peeling off. You can see I'm going to leave that outside layer that's full of stuff that's tough to eat. There's a ball roast. You can cook the whole thing as a roast or grind it up, but if you look in here, you can see all these different layers. There's several layers in there. Could be tough to chew if you cook this as a roast too hot, too quick. Grind it up as hamburger, be perfect. So once again, I feel the bone, you can hear it. Get down here where you're not hitting bone. Cut straight in, just barely get to the bone. Then just flay down it. And you can see the bone right there. I'm just skimming the edge of it, not wasting any meat. Cut through the end of that muscle. Just peel that outside layer off there. Bunch of stuff in there that's not that great. Not much meat if you see. You can actually see through it when I'm looking this way. Just peeling that off, save me trimming it later. There's my two ball roast. Put it in the bag with the other ball roast. Put it in the cooler on some ice. Next, I spin the deer around. I could walk around there, but I just want to show you. You can see a break in the line of muscles here. Really see it well on the inside, right here and right here. And I'm going to follow that line. I'm just going to come up here. I know the big bone's in there, so I'm going slow. As soon as I start to feel that bone, I just work around it with my point. And then I come right down the center here. Pelvic girdle's in there, so you want to go slow again. I'm just freeing this muscle up from the bone. It's called deboning. And you remember, we showed you the big bone on this side. I go to the bone, I just put a little pressure, and I don't go too deep. I just go about an inch deep, about as thick as I think the bone's going to be, depending on the size of deer, and just turn the corner by the pelvic girdle. And then I actually run right on top of the bone just a little bit, working my knife around that pelvic girdle. Once I get that pretty free, you can tell it's free enough. So now I can pull and go right down the bone again. You can see the line between the muscles right here. I'm just taking this apart. And this is pure meat. No tissue in there. You can see on this side. We're cleaning up the outside once we get inside to the kitchen, but this is just a big roast ready to go in the bag. I'm going to pull the other roast off just to show you how I did that. So again, I'm going to follow this line, going slow so I don't hit the bone too hard. Once I get to the bone, I come underneath it here, follow the bone line. Pelvic girdle's coming up, and I know it makes a little curve right here, so I got to be ready to follow that curve. And then once I get freed up here, I pull it back with my other hand and just kind of go barely on top. I don't want to go too deep at all. Now you can see it's really freeing up. Now I start freeing up from the pelvic girdle, working around the bones, nice and easy. You feel them, so it doesn't take too much pressure. You feel it right there. And you can see when you look in here how I went right on the edge of that muscle. See the tissue between muscles? I'm just following the muscle groups. There's no magic here. There's separate muscles here. You can tell the difference, so I'm following that line. I just put a little pressure to pull apart. This is the big main roast. This was a separate muscle all the way. Big old roast, we'll clean it up later. Put it here at the other roast. Put that baby on ice. You can see how tender this looks. I mean, you can just see it's a different grain of meat. Some people call that the eye of the round. I call it the hidden tenderloin. And you can take your thumb and run between there. I'll just take my knife to make it real easy. Just barely go down through here. And it will separate out. You can tell it's obviously a different muscle. This baby will be as tender as a tenderloin. That's why I call it the hidden tenderloin. It's just as good a cut of meat. A lot of people just throw that in with everything else. And this is a lymph node. You can tell it's a different color, shape. That's a lymph node. I don't want to be cooking that. That's why I don't cook a whole deer ham. Stay off that lymph node right there. And there you go, just like a loin. This roast runs back up here a little bit. I'm just taking a little fat off. So you can see it sticks back up here, right in this pocket of the pelvic girdle. And you can see I'm just following this magic line. I'm just separating this out. I'm not cutting through meat. I'm just following the lines. Another nice roast. See that tip right there? Go back in, because that's where that big roast goes in there. You can see I'm just freeing up. It's wanting to come off on its own. You can see right there the muscles are pulling apart. It's putting a little pressure on there. There we go. There's that inside loin, eyed around. Woo! I'll lay it right by the other one here for a second. Take this other roast off. Now remember, got another lymph node on this side. It feels different. It's right in here. You can see it's kind of like a giant lima bean. I'm going to get below all the cordage. It's not vessels really, it's cordage running to that. And I'll just deposit that. And then I don't want to leave this up here, so I take my time to go up here, follow the muscle line. You can see there's a clear break right there. Big old roast. Sunday lunch right there. This is shank meat up here, a lot of connective tissue and stuff. I'm just saving that to the end because that goes in my burger bag. This is going to be ground up. There's a little pocket of meat right here and here. You can see a little muscle. It's actually not part of the loin, and that will go in my burger bag here in a little bit. So I'll just save it till I get the burger bag going. And you can see the spine right here through all this fat and connective tissue. I'm just going to go right on the edge of the spine. I'm just feeling my knife just bouncing on the spine there. I'm going to go up and I'm going to come straight across. You feel a bone up here. And just come straight across. And I'm just working it in, following that spinal column. You can see it. You can hear going over that. Once you get it going, you can start tearing it. But I'm just working it right on the edge. Little bitty slow cuts. And then once you get over here, you can come on this side. And it goes a little faster now. And I'm on the top of the scapula right here. A lot of people don't know. Look how far back that goes. A lot of people don't know it goes back that far on a white-tailed deer. So I take my knife and free up all the way down in there, right below the scapula. I'm not cutting through the scapula. I'm just freeing up the meat. It'll come out to a little skinny point down there. Here we come. Got the whole loin. Great piece of meat. I'm going to lay it over here and I'll put it with another one in a second. No wasted meat, little chunks, you can't get it all, but look how deep I went down in the scapula. This is the top of the scapula right here. Look how far down in there it went. Don't want to leave that. Possums would like it, but you don't want to leave that. Get right on the other side, the spinal column here. Just going down. Hit the scapula again right there. Come back up a little bit deeper this time. Go up to the same height I was right here. If you do this sloppily, you can leave a lot of meat on a deer. So take your time. Your family will appreciate it. Look at that, coming off just pure and clean. About this time is when I reach in here and take that outer sheath off. No need to put that in the freezer. You're not going to eat it. There you go. Now I'm down to the scapula, so I'm going to work deep with my point of my knife. Scapula and go all the way down. You know, it's going to come off with the front shoulder, so I can do this and get that very tip. I like that tip. It'll cook a little, you know, it's thinner, so it'll cook a little hotter. Look at that. There's some fat covering the inner loins here, so I'm just taking my finger and freeing it up. Now this is so tender that you can tear this whole thing with your thumb if you're not careful. So what I do is just take my finger, get some fat out of the way, just run it down through there. And then where the fat's a little hard, I run right next again to the back of the spine. go all the way down. It goes all the way down here. See, this goes all the way down. This is a little small meat there. Go up. You don't want to waste any of this meat at all. Goodness, you wouldn't want to feed that to the possums. So go way up there. It's an important muscle to deer, but it's a weak muscle, so it is very, very tender. And then once I get it freed up, I'm going to take my knife and cut right across the top of that muscle. Get my fingers behind there. And look at this. You can see with just a little freeing it up. Whoo, that is tender. You can tell the grain is different. My finger would go right in there. Look at that. My goodness. When we look inside, you can see how clean it come out. That's a big lymph node. You can see these pea-shaped things. We're not going to eat that, so we're going to pull it to the side here. Get some fat out of the way and cut the very top. Now once I cut it, look at it. It just wants to almost fall out of there, just barely tearing it. I'm just cleaning it up because it's so tender. If you yank on it real hard, you'll tear it in half. Just easing down through here. Most people consider this the finest cut of meat on a deer, and nothing wasted. This is what a lot of people call sheath muscles. You see all the shiny connective tissue and how they're just woven in and out of each other? That's burger at best. Cold air sinks. So don't just set your meat on top unless you're getting ready to put more ice on it. Take the meat, what I do, I got them sealed good. I should mention the reason I'm putting them in baggies, if you get this all wet and watery on here, you're going to have to shave off more meat because that'd turn brown almost like freezer burn. So I put them in here real thin so that cold is right on it. And whenever I want to, tonight, tomorrow, a couple of days from now if I want, I'll just let this chill, then I'll clean it up and we'll share that with you later. I put my meat in here, and then I take the knife. I want to get ice on top of it because cold sinks. It doesn't get cold sitting on top of the ice. I've got another bag I can put on top of this when I get completed. This is like my walk-in cooler. These doggone Cabela's coolers are so good. And I can get a bunch of deer in here, several deer, if I debone it like this. I'll finish taking the burger off the deer, put another bag of ice. That baby's good for a while. I'm going to get the hamburger meat off here, but first I'm going to pull a shoulder off. And you can see it's pretty floppy. So I'm coming in here. I'm just cutting through the sheath muscle. You can see the back of the scapula right here. So I'm just following this back of the scapula around. And that is the front shoulder of a deer. Just going to take the other shoulder off same way. Find my line. You can see it kind of curving up. You can see the scapula. So I'm going to bend it down so I can stay on top of the scapula. Here's the top of it. Come the other way. Once you get that, you better get over the leg because the back of that scapula is slick. And here's the other one. You can tell looking at all this shiny stuff, there's a lot of connective tissue in here. Some people make shoulder roast. That's fine. You got to cook it really slow. On this deer, and what I typically do is make hamburger. This is one of the big primary muscles here. You can see the joint again. So I'm just barely going down until I hit the bone. Going around the head of that bone right there. If you look in here, you can see I'm pulling that off of a bone. That's the scapula. So there's a big chunk I'll clean up once I get inside, put in the hamburger bag. And you can see I'm just freeing that up from the bone, almost like removing the loin off the back. Once I do that, I turn it over, free up. This is real thin here. Just take that off. You can see all that connective tissue there. Get down to some more pure meat. And look at that. Now, look at that closely. Look at that inside there, and peel it back, and here, and here, and here, and there. See all that? You don't really want to be eating that. That's why when we get inside, we'll flay that out and make hamburger. Now you can see the outline of the bone, and we've cleaned up the shoulder. I'm going to pull these couple small roasts off here, a little bit of burger up here, as I said earlier. But that's a wrap, Lily. And the next step is cleaning up the meat. And we use a vacuum sealer to preserve it because I hope to harvest several deer this year. Not sure which pack my family will eat first, so I label each one. We'll show you all that when we get to the next video. Hope you've enjoyed this and learned it. Hope you do check out that first video of eviscerating or removing the guts, second video of how to skin, this video of how to debone. If you're sawing through all these legs and doing stuff, putting whole hams in there, you're probably feeding your family some bone chips, and the lymph nodes, I showed you where we took them out. Deboning a deer, I believe, or any big game, moose, elk, bear, whatever, I believe this is the best way to serve your family and loved ones high quality meat.